Welcome back. Just having a quick conversation with our guest who's joining us via Zoom today. You will be seeing her in a bit, but in case you're just joining us, karibu tena sana. This is Good Morning Kenya. I am Jain Wambui. We are glad that you have chosen to continue your morning on with us. And from that political note, we now move on to the next segment. And as we have mentioned a number of times here, today we're going to be having a conversation around gender-based violence, and more so given the fact that we are celebrating this year's 16 days of activism, which started last week on the 25th of November and will be running up until the 10th of December, which also coincides with World Human Rights Day. But for now, in regards to this conversation, joining us via Zoom, we have Honorable Lucy Mworia, who is a consultant when it comes to gender issues, and she is also, she holds a degree in nursing and psychology. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for making time to be with us on Good Morning Kenya.
My pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, all right, great. Now, for the benefit of our viewers, we'd just like to understand a bit about your background when it comes to gender-related issues.
Hello.
All right, we seem to be having a bit of a technical hitch right there, but we'll be getting to sort that out in a bit. Remember, once again, this is a conversation around issues to do with the 16 days of activism. And this year's theme is actually Orange the World and violence against women now. And just to paint a picture for you when it comes to gender-based violence, these are stats that have been shared by the United Nations, and more so just prior to the pandemic, and also how understanding how the pandemic exacerbated the whole situation. But just looking at the figures that they put out for the previous year, before the pandemic struck, 1 in every 3 women had experienced some form of violence throughout their lifetime. During the pandemic, this number doubled to 2 in every 3 women had experienced some form of violence in their lifetime. And this is our women and girls for that matter. But just looking at last year alone, that is the year 2020, 243 million women and girls across the world were abused by intimate partners, and this is violence meted against them. 243 million across the world, women and girls. And looking at also this figure, less than 40% have reported, or rather reported these cases or this violence that was meted against them. Therein just showing you the biggest gap that we have when it comes to fighting and bringing to an end gender-based violence. And also noting that this year we are celebrating 30 years since we started marking this 16 days of activism. 30 years down the line, how much progress have we made, given, you know, when this 16 days were first celebrated in 1991, the end goal was to end gender-based violence by the time we get to the year 2030. But so far, 30 years down the line, how are we doing? Now, let's rope in our guest this morning. Once again, we do hope the connection is much better now. Joining us via Zoom is Honorable Lucy Mworia, who is a consultant on gender issues and also holds a degree when it comes to nursing and psychology. Good morning, Honorable Lucy.
Good morning, Ms. Jain.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the
Fantastic. Thank you. Now, let us just start by understanding your journey, given you have been in the political arena, the political space here in our country for a number of years. How has your experience been like by virtue of just being a woman in politics?
My journey has not been easy as a woman in politics. I started my journey in 2013. And it was my very first time. In 2013, I contested for the seat of women representative in Isiolo County. And the reason I chose that time, it was because I thought that is where I would represent women who I've been working with for a long time. And it was rocky. So the women's seat was not like not many people were even interested. The men were saying, after all, that's just a women's seat. Isiolo, we are aware, and as part of the northeastern region of the country, where most of the politics, they are locally arranged by wazees. And when it came to the women's seat, it was not even recognized. Hiyo ni mambo ya wanawake, they can compete themselves. So I threw myself into there, and I ran second. There was a lot of harassment, verbal harassment. I never experienced it physical, but in some areas, some of my neighboring areas, it was. But there are some things I could not do just because I was a woman. Most men, they meet at night. They go work at night. They go into the bars, and now there I'm not. In case I try even to be out, I'll be harassed. And this is not a place for women. I mean, for women, politics is not a place for women. So I went through that. And after 2013, I was number 3. Some other 2 ladies, one of them got in the seat, and I continued just working with the communities. And 2017, I decided to go for Isiolo Member of Parliament. So this time it was even more rocky. This time I was not competing with the women, I was competing with men. I was the only woman on the list of 9. And actually, yes. So it was even tough. I got harassment from the voters themselves, even women themselves. Why would you even go for the men's seat? It's not for you. Why should you even compete with men? All this, are you married? Are you, all this sort of harassment. Again, now, here I am in the field of men where money spoke. And a lot of it is influenced by handouts. Now they want the pockets. Barely people listen even to the issues. You are here talking about issues, people asking, what do you have to offer?
All right. Now, speaking of, people asking, what do you have to offer? Maybe you could tell us about the status of Isiolo County when it comes to cases that are based on gender. Generally speaking, where would you gauge Isiolo County?
And in what, again?
When it comes to concerns around gender-based violence in your county, what are the prevalence rates that you have seen?
It has been quite a lot. Gender-based violence is not only physical, it's mental, early marriages for young girls. You're supposed to get married, that's a harassment by itself. Then people live in the fear because of culture. They don't even report these cases because it's like an embarrassment. Women get raped, they don't want to say. Women want to be beaten, they are beaten, they are hiding in the, you say, hata niligongwa na mlango, na saa hiyo you have been beaten. It's been very prevalent in our area.
All right. And do you think one of the reasons as to why it continues to prevail is what you just mentioned at the beginning, that awareness could be a problem because maybe people don't really understand the different forms in which this violence presents itself, given that the fact you've given an example about early marriages. But do you think that the locals, maybe to some extent, might not understand that this is one of those forms of gender-based violence?
Actually, it is, yes, because a lot of women, even some even educated, one is Isiolo's rate of the education, it's very low, and a lot of women actually did not even have the opportunity to go to school, and so they don't even know some of these things. You tell them what they think is being physically abused, they think that is an abuse. And the physical abuse in some of the cultures, it is normal, it is a treatment. The husband is supposed to beat you up, a man can beat you up, it is okay. Because most of the cultures of the tribes that we have, you even believed that women are just children, you're supposed to discipline them. So the women have tended to believe that. Remember in their culture, there are even some parts of goat, when it is slaughtered, women could not even eat. Why? Because you're a woman, you're supposed to eat matumbo. There are some specific meats That's for women. So women do not understand even financial harassment is there if someone is denying you. They do not understand that it's not just physical. They do not understand it is it's even getting forced married when you are still young, to drop out of school and get married. It is part of abuse. They do not understand that. They do not understand emotional torture is also part of abuse, because someone will not be beating you up physically, but it mentally tortures you. And a lot of women actually have a lot of mental breakdown. That is why you found during this Corona time, a lot of people are broken. They just keep it to themselves. They don't want to talk. Someone just tortures you, mental torture. And a lot of women do not understand it is torture.
All right. Now, I'd like to get your thoughts when it comes to some of the gaps that have also been identified by the UN when it comes to the gaps, of course, when it comes to fighting gender-based violence. And one thing they pointed out is believing the survivors have turned the narrative against gender-based violence survivors, and in this case, mostly women, such that people, or rather the greater percentage of the people who are supposed to be assisting, do not believe the survivors when they report these cases. What are your thoughts on that?
That is correct. The survivors, in some countries, like developed countries, we have what we call like the homes, where women shelters, where you keep them. But now you are not economically stable, that you have a job, you can hire or rent a home you go to your parents' home, where you find your father is another man who says now you should be there, mama yako anasema lazima uvumilie. So in developed countries, we have women shelters. Like when you're immediately abused, unaweza enda ukae huko. Then you also have counselors, and here we lack all that. The question of counselors, people assume so long as you cried and stopped, or you went back to your home, you are okay, of which is not true, because what you are going through has not been solved. So we lack that.
Now, let's bring in the aspect of funding when it comes to some of these cases and helping the fight against gender-based violence. How are we doing as a country, directing funds towards this cause?
Actually, I don't think we are doing what is supposed to be done. We are the people who are trying a lot is the NGOs. They're the ones who come out to civically educate women, also men, on this right, because both should be involved for them to understand it is not right to be abused and it is not right to abuse. So as a country, I don't think like there has been said aside even monies for that. Now we have devolution. We expect even the counties to take it very seriously and set even a department for gender only, because it is a very serious gender. It's a very serious group of people. Almost over 50% of the population is women. So I think it should be taken seriously. It should be put as a department. We should have a money set aside for that, and it should in the county levels mostly, because now we won't be involved. And that's where mostly those even abused more, they are in the rural areas.
And when it comes to the responding mechanisms that are in place, of course, we have seen time and again, we have been told that there's a gender desk at every police station. But when it comes to the responding mechanisms that are supposed to, come into action when a victim goes to report the case and also collect the data that would inform future responsive mechanisms, what more needs to be done to ensure that it is as effective as it is intended to be for the good of this person that has been victimized?
The desks are there, right? Like here in Isiolo we have, but the time you take, it takes too long. I had a specific case sometime last year where a woman was abused, she was raped, and she reported, and the guy ran away, and the woman reported It took several months. Eventually, the guy was caught up. The police is like, we can't find him, or and they have all the machineries they can trace. They can use, even find where the phone. Actually, even our phone was taken. So it was I think even they were really serious. Wangempata. But when we spoke up, we went to I spoke it on the media, and that is the time they woke up. So I think also it's necessary for women, even women leaders especially, to speak for others. Because after we spoke out with some organizations here in Isiolo, that's the time they took action and they got that guy somewhere in the central, and he is now justice for them. He's now somewhere behind bars.
All right. And looking at us as a country, and especially looking at the political space that you are in, and also the fact that we have about 9 months to get to the next general elections, would you say we have the political goodwill, both as a country and as part of the international community, to come together and contribute our efforts towards ending gender-based violence by the time we're clocking 2030?
Say that one more time.
Do we have the political goodwill towards the fight against gender-based violence within the local space, and also considering the fact that we are part of an international community, so that, gender-based violence can be a past conversation by the time we're getting to 2030?
I think in books, in theory, it is there. They try to say it's there, but in real practice, it is not. We are not halfway. Women will remain to be abused, will remain to be harassed, and especially now, even in the social media, we find a lot of harassment, a lot of discouragement. So I think we can do a lot more on that, on tightening these rules and encouraging women more, and having more civic education to our people. Because even if the laws are there, we have very good laws in Kenya. That's why I said in papers. But when it comes to implementation, it's not quite there. And women are still struggling.
All right. And how then do we bring our male counterparts, and especially in the political space, because given they have the biggest percentage when it comes to representation in our political space, how can they be roped in a way that they can be part of the solutions towards ending gender-based violence?
I think another thing that maybe could be corrected, we have a lot of organizations that work on the women. We've been talking about women issues for the longest, women, then gender balance, gender-based violence. I think it is a high time now. The conversation should be to all. Both men and women should be involved, because a lot of men, it's only women who are getting the opportunity in these organizations, being taught they should not be abused. But we are not having a lot of civic education and education on the men's side also to teach them why they should not abuse. So sometimes it brings even a huge difference, because many think we are at war. When we are woman, maybe has learned this and she says this should not happen to me. Culturally, the man believes that is how it should be. So I think a lot of civic education also should be on the man's side. So that is why even we end up having less women, even like in parliament or in elected positions, because women, even women themselves, do not even believe in themselves. They don't believe they can say no to some things. You can say no. Women have to learn to say no to this, and men should learn to say also no. I'm telling you, in the West, where I've lived for some time, in the US, men are the ones who say no to this more than everybody else, because they are people fear the law. The law is implemented. Here we have the law, but it's not. There's always a shortcut. So men, we should have more trainings on men too, not only women. So, and then we can also have collective trainings on both, so them to understand, so the men cannot take women as just as working against them we can work like we are complementing one another, not just competitors, to understand that each one of us has a talent, each one of us has something that I can do better than you, and then we put it together. It will be good for our country. We have more women who have ideas. We have women. I'm not saying it's every woman who can, not also every man who can. And then we start listening to issue-oriented politics. We listen to issues. We listen to agendas, not just money, because that is the biggest evil in this country. People should be taught that handouts cannot work. That's why a lot of women end up being disadvantaged. A lot of women do not have those quite huge sums of money. And especially when they are coming now in the arena, when it is maybe the first time they are trying to come in, now they find the men who have been there existing and they have all these monies. So then the comparison will be who has more. That attitude should be taught to the people, the voters, to be educated on that. It's not just about money, it's about listening, and maybe in the elected positions, we don't go there to fight where you need muscular energy for you to fight. You use the brains, you can make policies for our country, because it's not that because you are a woman, you cannot think. So they should understand that. So a lot of education on the medias, like you are doing, thank you so much, like the NGOs, but now the NGOs are just doing it and then doing it in the rural areas or even in the urban areas. Women get abused.
And also just bringing also women, more and more women and girls to this conversation towards ending gender-based violence. Again, from just your own experience, you have also experienced, an antagonism in the political space from your fellow women. How can we encourage more women to be our first line of defense and preventing further gender-based violence cases from occurring?
Again, I said the media has a very huge role to play with the local radios, in the national televisions. And another thing also, we find some biasness from the national media setups, where most of the people who are called to conversation like this, thank you, that got invited. Now I live in Isiolo, and there are a lot of people now who can identify with me. Oh, sir, Madam Lucy was saying this, so it is wrong. They will believe in the local person because that is their setup, more than just someone who is just talking in Nairobi all the time. So we want that participation up to the the village level. Even sometimes we invade even the women, even those ones who have been even those who have been victims and who have not been victims, from that grassroots level. Coming from down, going up, it will make them understand. So when you find a case, oh, this is someone from my village. She was abused, she's stopped, and this, she's this. Oh, that's Madam Lucy, she's from Isiolo. I see her, she's saying it is wrong. They believe in you because they identify. But now when the media continues just getting women from Nairobi all the time, people we are not familiar with, so let's go to the ground level, let's go, because violence is both in urban and the rural areas.
All right. Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, we are once again marking the 16 days of activism that will be running up until the 10th of December, which coincides with the Human Rights Day. What is your call to action message to every single individual who is watching us today?
To everyone who is watching us today, I would say gender-based violence should be a thing of the past. I'm talking to men, boys, women, and girls, our leaders. They should understand that. Also, what you even watch on the national televisions about the parliamentarians, you even find them harassing women there. That is also bad, because what you do there, this is what our children are watching. And also, we are also asking the government to watch these harassments on the social medias, and all the stakeholders, including the media. I'm also telling you that let's involve everyone. Participation is going to help. It cannot be one-sided, because here we are looking for solutions of something that has existed and has been existing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making time to be with us this morning. We have been speaking with Honorable Lucy Mworia, who is a consultant when it comes to gender issues. She holds a degree in nursing and psychology and is an aspiring MP for the Isiolo County in 2022. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Jain Wambui.
Fantastic. Now that brings us to all this conversation, but we are not done with this general conversation around gender-based violence. The 16 days do continue up until the 10th of December, and we will be sure to have more of these discussions here on Good Morning Kenya, in line with the theme Orange the World and Violence Against Women Now. For now, we want to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being with us. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning. I'm Jain Wambui. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.